Hey everybody, Phantom Shadow here, and welcome back to more Root Film. Last time we found the secret basement floor, and we're continuing the investigation. As soon as they stand in front of the reception room, they can hear people arguing. Riho realizes she's better off not going inside. She opens the door a crack and checks what's going on inside. I keep telling you, even if you say that, I can't just do that. Yes, but try putting yourself in my shoes here. We're already put in the advertising expenses for the next book. We can't just say it's not coming now it's this late into the game. We can publish it as a posthumous manuscript. If we do it now, please work on it. Think of it as retouching it. Don't be unreasonable. If I change Miss Kana's style, the fans will be upset. Well, where there's a will, there's a way. We can come up with the tricks for most of our works anyway, right? Hiroku came up with the tricks for Kana's novels. That's the first I've heard of it. Hiroku came up with the tricks? Having thought that far ahead, Riho exclaims in realization and wheels around to face Manabe. She's concerned that a huge fan like her might be shocked at having come face to face with such a big secret. But Manabe's expression was as collected as ever. I'm fine. It's not that surprising, you know? The tricks aren't that major of a part of a mystery novel's charm. The important part is how they're used and the literary style that describes them. I see. That's good then. Riho sighs in relief. We're better off not sticking our necks into that minefield. The two of them step in front of Soichi's room. I get the feeling we came here for no reason again. Are you sure we can speak to him? We saw the studio in the basement. I think we can manage it somehow. Huh? Leaving behind Manabe, whose expression turned quizzical, Riho approaches the door. Soichi, we need to talk. It's important. Please open the door. But the only reply she gets is silence. We saw your painting of Miss Kana in the basement. Riho can hear something move slightly behind the door. The one drawing that painting was you, right, Soichi? Please, open the door. A moment of silence, and then... Come in. The door opens with a grave, heavy sound. Soichi's room is cluttered, with objects strewn all over the place. Couldn't be called a clean, hygienic place. Still, Riho assumes she shouldn't compare a guest room meant for temporary residence in a personal room. How did you know I was the one drawing it? It's one of Miss Kana standing in front of the estate. I don't think Kana could have drawn it herself. I knew the only artist in this estate had to be you. That studio, it was a room Miss Kana prepared for you, right? Soichi, please tell me. Miss Kana cherished you so much. Where were you when she passed away? I don't want to say. The way this is going, you're going to be the only one without an alibi, and then they might decide you're the killer. Tell the truth. It's the only way to dispel this suspicion. Look like he won't talk no matter what. Then I won't back down either. Were you in the studio drawing while it happened? The painting was still fresh. The paint wasn't even dry. Yesterday you went to the studio to finish that painting, right? You probably wanted to finish your birthday present for Miss Kana on time. That's... Tomizawa told me. She said your arm had blood on it, and was blaming you when she saw it, right? A visible shiver ran across his face. No, that was... It's fine, I get it. What Tomizawa saw wasn't blood, right? It was actually red paint. That paint clung to your hand while you were painting. When you heard Miss Kana died, you ran out of the studio and forgot to wash it off. And unfortunately, Tomizawa saw it, and the fact that she suspected you made you scared, and you ran. Am I wrong? Soichi remained wordless for a few more seconds before deciding to talk. You figured out that much? If it was blood spatter, it would have been on your clothes, but Tomizawa only saw it on your arm. But it makes sense you'd roll up your sleeve while painting, and it got dirty while you were working. It happened exactly as the way you described. Kana made that studio for me. I'm too antisocial, so she had it built for me so I could paint freely. I wanted to draw her that painting as a present to show her how grateful I was. I wanted to make her happy. A tear runs down his cheek. But why did this happen? Soichi. The only thing I'm good for is drawing. I thought that participating in the party would just drag her name through the mud. That's why you shut yourself off in the studio? He gave a short nod. Why didn't you speak up until now? If you just explained that it was paint and not blood, we'd understand. I'm bad at talking. I thought I wouldn't explain it right. I thought you'd misunderstand anyway. I might as well. Might have left Kana to die back then, too. What do you mean? I left the studio to go to the restroom when I saw the vacuum laboratory door was closed, and there were noises coming from the inside. But then they stopped. I thought it was I just imagined it and walked away. If only I opened the door back then, she might have been saved. And that thought scared me so much. Is the door to the vacuum laboratory usually closed? Yes, its vacuum equipment is shared with the pneumatic system, so it had to stay closed at all times. The vacuum equipment uses the pneumatic system. I see. The pneumatic system uses the vacuum to transport things, so they share the same equipment. Yes. If that's the case, you shouldn't blame yourself. If the door's usually closed, you wouldn't notice something's wrong. You really think so? I do. The only one who should be blamed here is the real killer. If you're not him, I can't imagine Miss Kana blaming you for it either. Really? Soichi crumbles to his knees and starts sobbing. The two leave the room. Riho arrives at Tomizawa's room and is immediately ushered in. But much to Rio's surprise, she finds another unexpected person there. Hello. Kana, what are you doing here? I invited him over for tea. The police made the parlor quite noisy, and I had nowhere to rest. That was when Miss Tomizawa invited me over. I see. Yes, I would assume the parlor is quite the mess right now. I hope the police lift this house arrest within the day. Who knows, our identities are all confirmed, so I don't think they can keep us here indefinitely. I should hope so. I'd rather not sleep on a piece of cardboard again. How's your store doing? You run a restaurant in Tokyo, right? Yes, that should be fine. I have my dependable assistant chef I've been training, so I trust everything is fine with them. But that said, this doesn't mean I can stay here for much longer. How's the investigation going? Kano told me they discovered a basement. Yeah, looks like it. We haven't heard any new findings yet. But I hear they think the room the crime took place in is down there, right, Kano? Yes, they said something like that. I only heard bits and pieces of the conversation. So that's why seeing the way they act makes Riho realize why Tomizawa invited Kano over. Shio Tomizawa is likely trying to get information out of him about what the police are doing. She's a mystery author after all. She can't help but stick her neck in. Not like we can judge her since we're playing detectives too. Looks like my theory hit the nail on the head after all. What do you mean? Well, only Kana and those close to her knew about the basement, right? Neither of us knew about it. In which case, that makes Soichi all the more suspicious. I mean, that is true, I suppose. I don't want to rush to the conclusion yet, but I get the feeling saying that will just make things annoying. Alright. Soichi, it's Riho. Riho knocks on Soichi's door. Perhaps their earlier conversation broke down the wall he put up, because he greets them meekly. Is there anything else you need from me? There's something I forgot to ask you. We think the only ones who know about the basement are you and Hiroko, the manager. Is that right? Assuming Kana and Hiroko never told anyone else. I see. There's one more thing. On the first day here, Kana showed us the third floor. She said the view from the rooftop was lovely. Does she mean that there's a way to the roof? I don't know. Even you don't know? No, Kana said the way to the rooftop was a secret only she knew about, and wouldn't tell me. I see. That's enough, though. Just knowing that there's a way up there is good enough. That's all I wanted to ask, Soichi. Thank you. Riho? Riho hurries away from the room, leaving a perplexed Manabe behind. Manabe follows after her in a flustered manner. It really does bother me. What is it? Manabe, you had your camera running when Kana drove us here on the first day, right? Of course, visiting her house is a once-in-a-lifetime memory. Can we go back to our room and check the footage? Riho, wait, what? Riho hurries out of the room, ignoring Manabe's flustered reaction. She hurries after her. Upon returning to their room, Riho and Manabe used the camera's preview function to examine yesterday's footage. Which scene do you want to see? I want to see the part where you recorded a panoramic view of Capricious Hall. It would be best if you got it from a distance. Right, then how about this part? That's a great cabaret. Leave out the cabaret. What about it, though? What direction is the hollow we found the body in relative to this footage? The road we took there curved, so it should be this way. It's probably a side way from the driveway. I knew it. It has to be. Did you figure something out? Yeah, I'm not sure yet, but I think we'll figure everything out once we go to the rooftop, though. Roof? Yeah, there should be a way up to the rooftop somewhere on the third floor. Let's find it. Times like these, letting Riho do her own thing was usually the right choice. Knowing this, Manabe simply nods and leaves the room with Riho. A number of police march hurriedly through the parlor, and led by the inspector. Officers are standing in the cloakroom. There's tape to specify they weren't allowed to pass, but the officers thankfully say nothing as Riho boards the elevator. Here we are. This is where Kana brought us on our first day. Right, it was 2 days ago, but it feels like it's such a long time ago. Anyway, if there's a way up to the rooftop, it has to be on this floor. Let's try to find it. Yeah. It's Kana's study. Unlike last time when Kana was there to show them around, the room felt awfully dreary without its owner. Riho and Manabe peer at Kana's PC. The monitor is dark, but it's probably in sleep mode. With a few strokes of the keyboard, it comes alive. Looks like it's not password protected. I guess she figures outsiders wouldn't find this room anyway, so she didn't care much for security. Forget that, Riho. This file might be... No way, is this her newest work? Looks like it. Can I read it? Manabe clearly forgot they were here to investigate. Yeah, let's read it. It might hide some hint. Right, this is for solving the case. We got no choice. The two spend some time reading through the file. Kana had seemingly only written the intro, because it's only 10 pages long. It's unfinished, but it looks like the protagonist is plotting to become successful by murdering to sacrifice someone to Kanayago. I get it, so Kana used the party to introduce her work's next concept. Seems like it. She probably casually mentioned the concept to gauge our reactions. Could be, but between the ghost story and the tricks in Capricious Hall, Miss Connor really was an entertainer at heart. Of course she was, and that makes her such a successful first-rate author. You can see why you became a fan of hers. Really? Then, once you finish reading, we can stay up all night talking about it. I think I'd pass on the all-nighter. There are probably materials for writing. Sitting on the table are documents that look like they were copied off some book. What's this? Essential iron mine articles? Looks like there's some old documents that were copied in the National Diet Library. There's a summary sheet here. Let's see. Kanayago is said to be a patron god of iron manufacturing, an unusual god with a fondness for corpses. It is said that by decorating its Tatara furnace with corpses, it produces high-quality iron. Looks like Miss Kana wrote this memo, but it's a bit different from what she told us. The nuance is a bit different from it seeking out sacrifices, and says nothing about it roaming mountains for new ones. And since it's a god for iron manufacturing, it should have nothing to do with the Awami silver mine. I suppose she dramatized the story to make it more enticing. Looks like it. She went as far as to make that entrance, so I can imagine her being this devoted to keeping us entertained. The bookshelves are stacked with technical manuals. One among them sticks out, an old handwritten notebook. It's Miss Kana's. Flipping through the pages, she sees schematics with memos attached to them. It's full of ideas for tricks. Here's the tricks that include the food trolley, the same one Kana used for the party. The last page says, Riho's breath catches in her throat. She slaps the notebook shut and turns her gaze to Manabe. Upon confirming Manabe isn't looking at her, she stuffs the notebook in her bag. There isn't anything in particular that stands out. The other documents, there are only normal writing implements. There's nothing else out of the ordinary. As Riho says this, she peeks below the table and lets out an erratic screech. What the heck? There's some weird tanks down here. There's a plastic tank. What's it doing under the table? Beneath the table are two large plastic tanks. They were closed with large lids. Their transparent flanks showed the liquids were full of some... The tanks showed they were full of some kind of liquid. The label says dichloromethane. Dichloromethane? It's a type of colorless material with an acute smell that's usually used as a solvent. There's so much of it. What was she planning on using it for? Maybe to investigate for some trick? There's quite a lot of it. The two stood there lost in thought for a few moments, and eventually came up with nothing and decided to leave the tanks as they were. The last time they saw the bathroom, the tub was filled with clean water. We couldn't find any way to the rooftop in any of the other rooms, so it has to be here. You mean here? Yeah, in other words, this is Miss Kana's private space, I guess. Don't you think it's the perfect place for a secret passageway? When you put it like that, I guess it does. Let's check this place out a bit more. Riho reaches for the relief set on top of the pillar. She couldn't exactly reach it with her height, but she stands on her tiptoes and somehow manages to touch it. Is this... what? There's an odd feeling texture here, like something soft. Manabe reaches for the relief with a dubious expression. You're right. What is this? It feels like foam. You're right, that's what it feels like. Don't they usually make reliefs out of plaster or something similar? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure Miss Kana has specified that this material should be used. This pillar looks like it's made from a different material compared to the rest. Riho raises her voices upon touching the pillar and under the eagle relief. And indeed, the area around the pillar feels warm, unlike the coldness of plaster. The material feels different. You're right, it seems like it's made of something lighter. I wonder why only the spot is different. Look under the pillar. It looks like some kind of panel. You're right. It's not the gutter. It's not positioned on the floor. What is this? The weird panel that is only on the pillar with the eagle relief. There's some special meaning to that. There's writing under the eagle here. An eagle watches over the birds sipping at the watering hole. That's what it says. What does it mean? Doesn't it mean that the eagle is protecting the birds while they drink? That's pretty on the nose. And there's no birds here. Maybe it's some kind of poem? No idea what poem it could be referring to, though. Putting an inscription like this here seems pretty unnatural. There wasn't anywhere else in this estate that has an engraving like this. The water isn't hot, it's cold. The tub's circulating model, so I think you need to flip a switch before you get in. But isn't there even a point to having cold water in there all the time? I don't know. Probably looks like a waste to us since we're commoners. The pain of being the petty bourgeoisie, huh? This is weird. Something's off about the bathroom. There has to be some kind of secret here. Riho. Manabe parts her lips to speak, but Riho silences her with a raised hand. Then looks around the entirety of the room one more time. There's some kind of trick to the way this place was built, which is an eagle relief made of foam, a tub that's always full of water, pillar made of light materials, and an eagle watches over the birds sipping at the watering hole. The birds sipping at the watering hole. Ah, I get it. Birds that drink. Drinking birds. A drinky bird. Drinky bird? Haven't you seen one of those bird-like toys that bob their heads up and down? This entire jacuzzi room is one huge drinky bird. Ah. The birds are built so that there's red fluid at the bottom of the device. I get it. Diochloromethane. There was some in Miss Kana's room. Just wait, I'll go get some. She hurries out of the bathroom, excited by Riho's discovery. After a short wait, Manabe returns with one of the plastic tanks. Riho takes it and reaches for the panel under the pillar. Should be here, see? She opens the panel and reveals a space just large enough to set a plastic tank inside it. She pushes the tank into place and it clicks perfectly. I guess that was the right answer after all. Should be. 1 minute passes, then another. The two stand with bated breath. But wait, though they might, nothing in the room seems to have changed. Huh? Were we wrong? That can't be. This is the only use the diochloromethane could have. Ah. What? Were you wrong after all? To get the drinky birds to work, you're supposed to pour water on the bird's head, so let's do this. She scoops up water from the tub and splashes it on the relief. After being doused with enough water, the relief changed color, at which Riho stopped. This time it should work. The two of them gaze at the relief. Their impatience made time to grind to an irritating crawl. However, Riho exclaimed. As if her voice was some kind of signal, the relief slowly pitches forward. Huh. Reaches the water in the bathtub. You did it. It worked. The bird's tilting was likely some kind of switch, because as soon as Manabe raises her voice, the metal ladder descends from the ceiling. Alright, let's put a mark on it with some lift-up tape. There. After pasting a piece of tape that says dichloromethane below the pillar, Riho rises to her feet, and the two of them discovered the method to rise to the rooftop. Riho Part 2, The Solution. Riho climbs the ladder and finally reaches the Capricious Hall rooftop. It was likely done so it wouldn't be seen from the outside, but there's no fence surrounding the wide, spacious rooftop. This is spooky. It's dangerous out here. You could fall if you're not careful. But we still have to investigate this place. Riho approaches the edge of the roof with unsteady, faltering steps. She approaches the massive ventilation duct sticking out from the edge. It's a pretty big exhaust pipe. Feels like someone could crawl in there. It's probably for the pneumatic system and the vacuum laboratory use. Must be. Yeah, and the killer probably used this. Huh? Manabe turns around and Riho points at the exhaust duct port. There's something in there, and that was definitely added in later. A machine part that looks like a pinwheel. There's something like wire wrapped around it. A pinwheel with a wire wrapped around it was attached to the exhaust shaft. It's like I thought. Riho, is this what you expected to find on the roof? Right. Except it's actually even more elaborate than I imagined. Alright, Manabe, it's time to avenge Miss Kana. Let's gather everyone in the parlor. Riho. The pulley on the rooftop and the wire marks on the tree near the hollow. The piano strings on the roof and the vacuum laboratory. It's the only answer that makes sense. At this moment, all the points connected to form a single line in Rio's mind. She takes a deep breath, her mind feels endlessly clear, and the truth that felt so distant is now within arm's reach. Several hours later, all the people involved with this case are gathered in the parlor. Riho spoke to Manba ahead of time, who ordered everyone to attend. Soichi showed up, albeit with a terribly uncomfortable expression. Everyone looks uniformly nervous as Riho walks to the middle of the room. Hello everyone, thank you for gathering here. I solved this case's mystery entirely, and I would like to share my conclusions with all of you. Whoosh. A rustle runs through everyone. Wait a moment, did you really solve this case? Does that mean you know who the killer is? Yes, I already figured out who the killer is, and that person is... you, Hiroko Mizukami. Another rustle passes through the room, but as it does, Hiroko alone stepped up to Riho with an air of composure. Riho, I hope that when an amateur like you says they've identified the killer in front of everyone like this, it's because you have a good reason to. Yes, you can definitely assume that. Then let's hear it. I have an alibi. I was at the party during Kana's estimated time of death. Everyone present here can attest to that. In which case, how did I go to the hollow and kill her? That's simple. The hollow wasn't the crime scene. It wasn't? That's right. There are traces of that here in the estate. In other words, the emergency stop button is out of order. The vacuum equipment uses the pneumatic system. The laboratory emergency stop... Okay, it's only two things. The vacuum laboratory in the basement. Vacuum laboratory? There was something like that in this estate? There's an emergency stop button inside the laboratory in case someone gets trapped inside, but somebody broke it. In other words, Miss Kana was shut in that room and forced to suffocate to death. Just because someone broke the button doesn't mean it was necessarily murder. Luminol reactions were discovered in that room. Miss Kana scratched out her own throat due to the suffocation, resulting in traces of blood. Really now? If the police found luminol reactions in the room, then the possibility is worth examining. Someone called Miss Kana to the vacuum laboratory, closed the door, and activated the device. All they had to do next was wait for the vacuum to form, so that they only had to spend time on getting to the room and pressing the switch. In other words, all they needed is a short amount of time out of the party. I understand so far, but do you have proof Miss Kana went to the room that night? The button could have been broken for a long time now, and the bloodstains that made the luminol react could just be as old. No, but I have proof that Kana left the parlor and went to the basement that day. Proof, huh? What proof exactly? It's impossible to kill Kana and carry over to the hollow. Looks like blood was on Soichi's sleeve. Kana wasn't seen leaving the parlor. Miss Kana didn't leave the party through the entrance. Kono can attest to that. We have the footage of the fixed spot in the party that proves it too. But she still left the party somehow, which means she had to have used the elevator hidden in the cloakroom. Oh, I see. You had footage. The killer probably came up with a reason to have Miss Kana meet them in the vacuum laboratory and followed after her. Then they trapped Kana in the room, switched on the vacuum device, and left her to suffocate to death. Wait a moment. I understand there's a good chance she went in there, but in actuality, we found that corpse in the hollow. Doesn't that mean you can't establish the laboratory as the scene of the murder? You can't say for sure that the blood marks that caused the luminol reactions weren't there before the murder. It's simple. That night, the culprit that killed Kana in the middle of the party carried her to the hollow after the party ended. Hiroko's eyes widen at Rio's words. Soon she starts chuckling, as if she'd just simply heard something too outrageous to be true. And here I was wondering what you'd come up with. I guess that's as far as your fake detective work will take you, to think you were trying to pass off a whole written fabrication as the truth. See, everyone's shocked as I am. True to Hiroko's words, everyone else who had watched over their exchange with their breaths held regards Riho with disappointment. Riho didn't pay any heed though, and carries on with her words. I'll say it one more time. After the party ended, the killer secretly carried the corpse to the hollow. Since you're sticking to that story, I suppose I have to say that, even if it might end up embarrassing you. Okay, no one left this state ever since the party ended, and until we went out to look for Kana. We already checked the security company's records and the camera footage. Isn't that right, Inspector? Hiroko turns to Manba for approval, who nods. With that confirmed, Hiroko faces Riho with a smile. See, Inspector says so too. Or are you trying to say that there's some secret passage? Try putting that in a mystery novel. The readers will complain to no end. Of course there's no secret passageway. The killer used a certain trick to carry the body away. And that trick is... a pinwheel with a wire wrapped around it was attached to the exhaust shaft. The roof to exhaust nozzle that had a pinwheel-shaped part attached to it. Huh? Got it. Hiroko can't help but suppress an exclamation of surprise, and the way she did serves as definite proof for everyone else present, even if they didn't quite understand what Riho was getting at. There is a significant difference in elevation between the capricious hall and the hollow we discovered the corpse in. The killer took advantage of that. They had piano strings serve as a ropeway, employing a pulley to move the corpse to the hollow. Then they pretended to look for Miss Kana with the rest of us, as they all the while pushing the corpse to the hollow along a side road, and then screamed. As a result, they moved the corpse to the hollow without leaving the estate. In other words, the only one who could do it was the first person who discovered the body. It was you, Hiroko. Everyone else stirs again. The gazes turn cold. But even so, Hiroko still tries to offer a final bit of resistance. If that's true, the piano strings would have stayed at the scene, wouldn't they? Doesn't matter how you cut them, some string would stay. If the strings were drawn all the way to the estate, the police would have found them. That's what the pinwheel set at the exhaust duct was for. It reeled back the string, collecting it. The piano strings were tied to the other end, after all. There were signs that the trees in the crime scene were chafed by something. So one end of the strings was tied in the hollow and the other was on the capacious hall's rooftop, at the pinwheel in the exhaust duct. All they had to do was cut the strings in the hollow. The device exhaust would then spin the pinwheel, automatically reeling the strings back. That's... Hiroko, just give up already. You thought no one could get into the rooftop and planned to quietly collect everything from the roof once the police were gone. But when we figured out how to get to the rooftop, you already lost. Yes, so it seems. But I don't get it. Why would you kill Miss Kana? You were such good friends. I told you a bit about it, right? I knew her ever since literature club in high school. We would think up tricks, write novels, but at some point our positions changed. At some point I became Kana's assistant, but I always thought I'd come up with some great trick and surprise her. And then I did. Kana consulted me about tricks for this house when I came up with something. And when I did, I wanted to put it to use, and then I wanted to surprise her with it, first and foremost. That's why? That was your reason? But no. Maybe I was just jealous of Kana the whole time. We started at the same place, but at some point I was left behind in the shade, and that frustrated me. And always I had a grudge against her ever since. Hiroko. A silence settles over the large parlor. A single tear streaks down her cheek. This was a mystery novel. This would be the last scene. After all, there's a detective right around the corner. I only figured out this trick because there was evidence left behind in the hollow and the rooftop. I think this trick's flaw is that it's hard to get rid of the tools you used for it. With such a large machine on the roof, getting rid of the tools without anyone noticing is difficult. But only people who know about the trick in the bathroom can go to the rooftop. But put another way, if someone were to find proof on the roof, they'd know only those who knew how to get there could be the killer. And since the killer wouldn't assume anyone could get up there, they would carelessly leave fingerprints on the tools. Right, that's exactly right. When I came up with the trick, I was absolutely positive no one else knew. But turns out I failed. Actually, I wasn't the only one who knew about this trick. Huh? Riho took out the notebook. It was the one she took out of Kana's room earlier. The trick notebook? It was an idea notebook Miss Kana wrote when she was still alive. Read it. This is... Kana and I thought of this one in high school. I can't believe it. She actually kept it written down like it's important. Hiroko reads it fixedly, taking in every single page, and her hands stop upon reaching the final one. The trick on the final page, it's... Yes, I think Miss Kana thought of this one on her own. And don't you think it's very similar to this one? A method to carry a body over distance without leaving the building, creating a line from the roof, using rope to carry the corpse. This is... right. The actual tools and murder method aren't written here, but overall it's almost identical. And at the end of this page there's a comment from Miss Kana. To perform this, one must create a situation no one enters the rooftop. That's because all the proof would be there, making it easy to deduce the trick. Kana. She knew everything about this trick. I came up with everything down to its flaws. More tears. They flow unabated, forming smudges on the notebook, and eventually, Hiroko raises her voice in what can only be described as a howl. Manba gently taps her on the shoulder, patiently waiting for her to get to her feet. Riho Part 2, Epilogue. Riho and Manabe leave Capricious Hall behind. Looking up at it one last time, the building strikes them as somehow extremely desolate. In the end, that was the howl we heard from the night of the murder? Oh, the time when I told you it was Kanayago, you got scared. Stop editing your memories like that. You were the only one who got scared. Anyway, I think I know what it is now. That growling was the sound of the vacuum device operating. It was? Yeah, I thought it was the wind, but when we went out to look for Miss Kana, the air was calm and silent. In other words, we could only hear it from inside the estate. That's what it was. Yeah. Miss Kana probably would have been sad to leave a novel half-finished. If I was in that position, I'd like to leave a work behind. Stop that, that's ominous. It's just a thought. Something about when you'll die. You're gonna be a great actress that'll stay in the spotlight until you're at least 80. That sounds bothersome in its own way. Heh. Manabe, I'll become a great actress, good enough to make you admit how great I am. So please, stay by my side and support me until then. Riho bows her head. Manabe watches over it warmly and bows her head in the same manner. Yes, let's stay partners in the future too. The two of them raise their heads, exchange glances, and look away awkwardly at the same time. Now then, star actress, how about one last line to pull the curtains on this? Again? A great actress wouldn't complain there. Fine. And so we put the Capricious Hall behind us, but we were unaware of the next case that awaited us. What was that throw? It's like, to be continued, next week. A serene wind blows, catches Rio's words and laughter, carrying them with it somewhere to the distance. Alright. That was a good case. Shorter than I was expecting, though. There's absolutely no way I could have predicted, the rooftop pulley system stuff. Alright, that's Riho Part 2 clear, and then we'll be moving on to Yagumo Part 3. But I think I'm gonna take a break from this game for a little bit. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.